how a writer's mind works. Now, this is just my own personal opinion. I don't know if every writer's mind really works like this, but my mind works like this, and I'm going to share it with you guys. So I feel like pretty much every writer's mind works very similar to mine, where we are constantly creating stories and getting inspiration from pretty much anything and from anywhere. Whether it's our dreams, whether it's the people that we meet when we go outside, when we go to the grocery store, whether it's people that we've met in our past and people that we think we might meet in our future, whether it's characters from video games, whether it's characters, that we see from a Marvel movie and we want to make our own character very similar to that character, or from our own dreams and our own nightmares. I feel like us writers, we get inspiration from every possible thing. Of course, we get inspiration from our own spirit, our own mind, and our own heart. But inspiration is just, I want everybody to know that inspiration can come from anywhere and anything. And as people, we get inspiration as writers from anywhere and anything. You know, sometimes we get it from TV shows, movies, magazines, magazine articles, newspapers. Sometimes we get it from past cartoons. The creator of Boondocks was heavily inspired by black culture, but he was also inspired by Charlie Brown. And it's showing, you can tell, because the Boondocks characters do look very similar to the Peanut characters. And they even have that nice, relaxing music in the background if you watch the Boondocks and if you watch Charlie Brown. As writers, we get inspiration from pretty much anywhere. And I feel like the magic usually comes from our childhood. I feel like a lot of people who are writers, who are authors, usually get that magical, whimsical things from their childhood. I feel like they think about their childhood, and I feel like when an author creates a story and it's about a child, it's really a self insert of how they would love for a magical world to be. I also feel like a lot of the time, a lot of these books, Harry Potter, for example, I always feel like it comes from an author's heart and it comes from what they believe, what they dreamt about, and how they wish the world was when they were a child, when it comes to being magical, and whimsical and beautiful and just, you know, fantasy. I feel like a lot of people do the exact same thing because that's what I do. A lot of the time I daydream. I am an extremely big daydreamer and I dream extremely hard and sometimes I have nightmares. And it's always interesting when I have all these things and sometimes I even get sleep paralysis. And it's interesting when I get all these different things because I get inspiration from all of them. Even the sleep paralysis, even when I'm laying in the bed, I can't move. I'm just stuck. I even get inspiration from that. And it's like my story is actually so inspired by dreams to the point where my characters have dream powers. And a main plot point of my story is about dreams, but I'm not going to spoil it, and whatnot. But even my main character, Top is highly inspired by me, but he's also inspired by, you know, he's inspired by people who lived in the hood and lived in the street. And, I feel like anybody can pretty much relate to him who's ever lived in the hood. Um, because myself, I lived in the hood. I lived in a black hood. I lived in a Mexican neighborhood. That was the hood. And I lived in a white neighborhood. I lived in a black, white, and Mexican neighborhood. So, but like I said, a lot of my story is inspired by my childhood. It's inspired by my dreams. It's inspired by my nightmares. It's inspired by sleep paralysis. It's inspired by, you know, back when I was young and I had that sense of wonder as a child and I had that fixation on that high that you got as a child. I mean, when you were a kid back when you were young, pretty much everything gave you this childlike high and looking at everything gave you like a childlike dream sequence. And even though I don't get that as much anymore as an adult, I get it when I dream. A very interesting dream I had last night that was it was weird, but it was interesting. It was a dream about these two guys. I don't know who the hell they were, but it was two guys and they had a van and it was like one of those 70s vans with the bed in the back. And these two guys were like basically driving in this like weird city. I don't know what the city was. I'm assuming it was a fusion of the different cities that I've been in. But basically, there was an Asian lady and she was telling them that they had to cross like this little, it was basically like a river and it had like this small little wooden, um, wooden raft, and she basically told him to drive the van on top of it. And one of the guys in the van was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that." And then I had another dream, because sometimes my dreams will be like 4K HD dreams where I can hear the people talking and it's just so freaking clear and it's so bright and it's so beautiful. And then sometimes my dreams are like slideshows where it just goes very fast paced and very quick and I can't remember everything that happens. And sometimes it gets like a Quentin Tarantino movie where the ending is first and then the beginning is last, etc., etc. So I had another part of that dream that I can kind of lightly remember is basically I was in I guess it was like a daycare. It looked like this, like it was like a strange looking daycare. It was like you walk inside, and it might have been because I was talking about Chuck E. Cheese the other day. But you walk inside, there's like this weird little wall thing, and you walk inside, and there's like kids sitting down or whatever, and they're like watching a movie. But then like in the back, there's like another room where there are kids watching a movie, and it might be because I used to work at a daycare. But basically, it was just the kids sitting watching movies, and I was sitting next to them watching a movie, and I think it was like Finding Nemo or something. It was really random, and but it did remind me of my past. I mean, but it was random as hell. But like I said, I think it was mostly because I was talking about Chuck E. Cheese the other day. But even stuff like that inspires me. Even the two guys in the van kind of inspired me a little bit, And even this movie that I recently watched with my mom inspired me. I get a lot of inspiring things because I feel like every author, every writer, it's like your brain is like a puzzle. Your brain is not a puzzle. Let me rephrase that. Your story is like a puzzle, and you look for little different things that you can add into your story that will make the readers feel different emotions. So when you watch a movie, it has like a sad scene, you think, oh, I could take that sad scene and flip it a little bit and make it better or make it sadder. Or you see like a scene that's very, very happy, and you think, I could take that scene and make it happier. And sometimes you'll see scenes that are very magical, and you're like, I could make that 10 times more magical, and it's kind of just how I am. I get a lot of inspiration from a lot of things, and my story is just like, I feel like to be a great writer, you must create a story that could possibly be endless, to the point where you could just write it for your whole life until you die. And some authors do that. Some authors put every single little detail in their story, like Robert Jordan, rest in peace. When he made The Wheel of Time, I can tell that he wanted every small little detail inside of his story. He didn't want to leave nothing out. He didn't care if people felt like some of it was a slog. He didn't care. He wanted to write the story the best way he knew how, and he wanted to put everything that he possibly wanted into that story. And I feel like every writer, actually I feel like every person has a novel in their head. They're just not ballsy enough to write it down. But I feel like everybody gets that feeling of wanting to write down a fantasy story, but I feel like a lot of people just don't know how to write it down and what they would do to be able to write it down. Like, they don't know where to start, is what I mean. And my advice would honestly be just write what you have. Just make a story, even if you don't understand what you really want the story to be. Just make a character and just make a story out of whatever you're thinking about. Freestyle that hoe. Like, real talk, because me personally, I have thousands upon thousands of notebooks. I'm exaggerating. I have maybe like 10, but I have a whole bunch of notebooks of different, different ideas and different story arcs and whatnot. And that's one way of how I write, but I write like 3 different ways. Like, I'll type on the computer and write, but I'll also write some of the story in a notebook, and then I also will look at the notes that I have, and then I'll also think of what type of story line that I want, and I usually have like this little sheet. I don't know where it's at, but it's a really simple sheet where it basically just says Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. It's really the most simple thing, and I'm gonna probably make a video on it, but it's extremely easy to make the story structure if you use this little piece of paper I have. I can make the story structure extremely easy, but I want to do another video on that. I don't want to put that in this video because for one, I have to look for it. It's under a whole bunch of these big papers, and I really should just rewrite it because it's really nothing too big. I'm probably just gonna rewrite it because I don't feel like looking for it. One thing about writers is we are not organized at all. Even though my room isn't really that dirty, we're really not organized. But writing a story is a part of my dream, which is why I talk about it all the time. And like I said before, I feel like as a writer, You should be able to endlessly write your story. That's how into your story you should be. You should be into your story to the point where you make notes on it everywhere, all day, all the time. You should make it to where you're writing all day, all the time. And it should be borderline an obsession because it's your dream, it's your goal, it's your main focus in what you want to do. I feel like that's how writers should be. The only problem with that is it can be a lot of things that stop you from doing that. You might have a day-to-day job, you might have children, you might get that writer's block, but the whole point is to write even when you don't want to write. When you're depressed, write. When you're sad, write. When you don't want to get out of bed, get a tablet, write on your tablet and write the rest of your story. When you don't feel like writing at all and you feel like your stomach hurts because you ate too much food, keep writing. When you're going on a big trip on vacation, keep writing. When you're tired, keep writing. When you're sick, write. When you're super healthy, write. When it's the morning time, write. On your lunch breaks at work, write. When it's dinner time and you're at the dinner table, write. When you feel like you just have nothing to say at all and you just can't think of nothing, continue to write. Because it's pretty wild when you just keep writing, because the thing about writing and the thing about constantly doing something is that no matter what, you will improve on it regardless, because it'll become muscle memory. Your brain is the strongest thing in the world. It's like a supercomputer, and if you keep doing something, you will become an expert at it. I heard that it takes 10,000 hours, but I would say after you do it for about 5,000 hours, you pretty much will master whatever you're doing. I used to do that with working out. I used to work out so much to the point where I didn't even notice that I was working out. Back in the day, I really need to get back on that, because I was on that when I was like 20. Yeah, but yeah, it's just constantly improving and constantly doing things, and just not making excuses, just doing it. That's the problem with a lot of people is we always make excuses. I don't have enough time. I don't know when to do it. I don't know how to do it. I don't know where to start. I don't know when I'm gonna start. I feel like it's gonna take too long. I'm too depressed right now. I don't feel like doing it. All my stomach hurts. I'm on the toilet. I don't feel like doing it, etc., etc. But you have to understand that there is no right time. There is no freaking the sun shining on you like it's a miracle or something in a dream-like sequence or in a movie-like sequence. Nah, today is the day. Right now is the time. You have to. If you ain't doing nothing, if you ain't doing a dang thing, you gotta do it right now when you have the time. And don't be scared, be brave, and don't worry about people liking it. I will always say this. Don't worry about people liking your writing, because there's going to be plenty of people who think it's dumb right now, and then when it becomes big and popular, everybody's going to magically love it. They're going to act like they've been there since the beginning. They're going to be like, remember that one time I helped you? That's another thing. Don't get too much help from people, because people will take a lot of your credit. Don't even let people give you random ideas. At first I didn't understand why the Pokemon company wouldn't take outside Pokemon ideas, and then I realized why they won't do that, because they don't want a whole bunch of people, being like, yeah, I work for them and blah blah blah, I do all the work for them and etc. etc. They didn't want people to do that, so they literally have a closed group who create the Pokemon. But they still should let a lot of people create Pokemon. I feel like they should. I mean, people do it anyway. People make fake Pokemon cards and fake Pokemon and fake Pokemon ROM hacks, fake Pokemon video game. I mean, they do it already anyway. I mean, I see fake Pokemon cards all the time. I think, honestly, a couple of my dream jobs would be, for one, work for Cartoon Network. One of my dreams would be to meet Pendleton Ward and actually get to have a conversation with him. That'd be awesome. I would love to meet Yoshiro Togashi, who created Hunter x Hunter and Yu Yu Hakusho. I would love to have a conversation with him, even though he speaks Japanese and I speak English. I would literally just learn Japanese so I could be able to speak to him and let him know how much he's inspired me. J.K. Rowling, too, she's inspired me a lot by her work ethic for her story. Rest in peace to Kobe, but I would also tell him that he inspires me because of his work ethic as well. And, who else? Oda, I would love to meet Oda, bro. I would start crying if I met Oda, bro. I would give him the biggest hug, bro. I'm sorry. He'd probably be like, who is this random black kid? Random black dude. Like, what the hell? I would love to meet Oda. Come on, bro. Y'all don't see Luffy on my shirt, bro? Hold on, bro. Camera's all sideways. Nigga. If I can meet Oda, bro, I would probably die if I met Oda. I'd be so happy, bro. But yeah, it's just, yeah, writing is this is a lot of work. And you have to really, truthfully love the world you're creating. You have to really get deeply into the world that you're creating. And you have to create a world where even when you close the pages, even when you close the book, the world is still moving. That's how you want it to feel. Like the characters are still walking around. You know, you want the world to be something that you would love to live in, and you have to make the world something fun to explore that everyone would like. But I would also say write a book for you. Okay, don't write a book for everybody else, because that's going to stunt your growth. That's going to stunt your imagination, because you're trying too hard to make a story for someone else. Like I've said before in a couple of my old videos, you don't want to make a Lord of the Rings knockoff, because that's too boring, it's too generic. There's already a Lord of the Rings. Why would people want to read your book when there's already literally a Lord of the Rings? It's just like making a Harry Potter knockoff. Don't just make a book about wizards and a character and his name is Jerry and he's a wizard and he has a scar on his arm. Like, don't, that's stupid. You gotta be more creative than that. You know, and mix things a little bit more. I feel like a lot of people don't mix stuff enough. I said it before in another video, but like, make a magician ninja or a wizard ninja or something. You know, start fusing stuff together. Just make something that feels more original. And this is why I love Oda, because Oda uses every single idea he possibly gets. That's more advice I'll give you. Use every idea and every character that you can think of. You want your story to be endless. You want to have endless ideas for it, and you want to be able to, anybody ask any questions about it, you can pretty much answer everything, because you want the world to be extremely deep. You want it to be like if somebody made an iceberg of your world on YouTube, it could be like a 17-hour video. That's how deep you want your world to be. You know. Another book that I think is very deep is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I just find those stories to be very mystical, magical, and whimsical, just like Harry Potter. I feel like it's low-key on the same level, even though a lot of people probably wouldn't agree with that. You know, I feel like I haven't personally read the books because I don't want to be a fake fan, but I have seen the movies, and I've heard analysis on the books, and my teacher read the book when I was probably like 6 or 7 years old, when I was like in second or third grade, and that story was just amazing, bro. Like, it's just super deep and fun. I mean, just imagine going into a wardrobe as a little girl or a little boy, and you're in this like different world. Like, that's mind blowing. You know what I'm saying? It's very mad. I would say it's low key. It's not on the same level as Harry Potter, but it's for damn close. It's close. One of the recent books I'm reading right now that I got is Earthsea, A Wizard of Earthsea. I'm most definitely going to try to read this as quick as possible. How many pages is it? It's only 280 pages. I probably could knock this out in a weekend, to be honest. I probably could knock it out in like 6 hours, to be honest, if I really just sat there and just read it. But so far I like it. I'm only on like page 7, but I do like it. You know, I like the power system. You know, knowing the true names of things is pretty interesting. It's a pretty good story. I'm really trying to read more fantasy novels. I've watched a lot of anime, which is kind of like light fantasy novels, but I want to explore more books. But books do take way more time. I really want to read this Patrick Rothfuss book, The Name of the Wind. I really want to read this because I hear it's freaking amazing from some people, and then some people say it's trash. So I'm like so curious, you know, to see what it's about, but I haven't read it yet. And then I'm gonna eventually read Assassin's Apprentice too. Can't even really see it. It's so bright. I'm gonna read that one too. So what's that? And Lies of Locke Lamora. That's the one I also want to read. I have that one in my closet. But yeah, there's a lot of books I have in my closet that I haven't read. Most of the mainstream books that everybody talks about, I have in my closet. I actually have Harry Potter, the first book, in my closet, I believe. So yeah, I need to read that too. I'm gonna read that, bro. I want to read that and see the differences between the books and movies. I've seen the movies like multiple times. And I actually got lucky too, because I actually went to Goodwill. This is why I always say go to Goodwill. I literally found 3 of the Harry Potter movies at Goodwill, and only one of the DVDs was scratched up a little bit. The other 2 weren't scratched at all. It's wild what you can find at Goodwill. The one out here is not as good, but it's kind of good just because I found the Harry Potters. But the ones back in where I used to live, you literally could get flat screen TVs for like $40, bro. So I always recommend going to Goodwill. You can find like Game Boys there for like $40. You can find like DSs for like $60. It really is worth it. But yeah, I would always say that you should constantly be, you know, and constantly be improving your story. I feel like this is something that a lot of people don't do is like they get burnt out once they finish like 500 pages, so they don't like finish it. But I feel like you should have enough material to where you can make like 20 books, and I feel like you should have enough backstories, and you should constantly have backstories for every single character you have. You should have personalities for the characters, special powers for the characters, special places that they came from, you know, villages, cities, islands, planets, wherever they came from. I have so many different species from different villages, planets, and cities. I have some of them where they're on one planet, but they're like on the bottom of the planet, on the top of the planet. Some of them live inside the planet. Some of them live on an island on the planet. But again, my planet is inspired by so many different shows: Discworld, One Piece, Hunter x Hunter, Toriko. You know, my map is inspired by all that, so it has like a whole lot of creatures in it. And it's very deep and vast. But it's funny because when you read my story, it's nothing like none of those things. Like it's funny when you see the characters in my story, you'll be like, this doesn't really feel like it's inspired by all these things, but it is. You know, but I would say to never give up your dreams and never stop fighting for what you believe in, and to always constantly keep improving, keep adding in your stories, keep thinking of ways to make your stories more interesting, more unique, more fun. Find different. You can use cliches. As much as people hate cliches, you can use cliches. Sometimes you can flip cliches on their head and make something even better. Like take cliche and then somehow flip it, make it extremely unpredictable. One of my favorite anime that's extremely unpredictable is Hunter x Hunter. That's like one of the most unpredictable anime of all time, because you would never think that spoilers, that you would go from dudes fighting to become a hunter in a forest, and then out of nowhere you have these giant ant chimera creatures where they're like mixes of animals and ants, and they literally eat humans. I mean, I never would have thought the story would turn into that. Um, that's one of the best story arcs of all time. Chimera Ant arc is one of the best, and York Nu is also one of the best. It's actually wild. There are people who really have watched Hunter x Hunter and they don't like the first half of it, like the first like 40 episodes. They only like York Nu and the Chimera Ant arc. I'm like, are y'all high? Y'all didn't like the Hunter exams? That shit was interesting. There's no way that you guys can love the tuning exams in Naruto, but then don't like the Hunter exams in Hunter x Hunter. That's wild to me. Like, I don't know how y'all can be like that, bro. Like, y'all will literally give Naruto a freaking 10 out of 10 best anime ever, but then Hunter x Hunter, y'all will say it's like a 6. Like, what? How you gonna call something a 6 when it's inspired by something else, bro? That's crazy. Y'all see that brightness? Believe it. That's wild. And I like Naruto, but I just hate when people will like say Naruto's a 10 out of 10, but then give other animes like a 6. Like, what the hell? That's something. Like, people will give One Piece like a 5. I'm like, really? They be calling it mid piece and all that stuff. I'm like, nah, One Piece is goated, bro. Especially the manga. That world building is top notch. You can't beat it. You can't beat the world building in that show. World building in that show is so top notch and it's so fire. I don't know what y'all be talking about, but yeah, this is just a video on writing. I'm gonna do another video, so y'all stay tuned. I love you. Take care. If you need a listening ear, I'm your boy. I'll listen to you, and I love you. I hope you feel love. I'll give you all a virtual hug. I hope y'all have a great night, and I hope that, if you ain't got nothing to do, watch my videos, get you some popcorn, get you some Coke, watch my videos like it's a movie, because you will learn something. Love y'all. Take care.